Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 101. So we are on our way to 200 episodes. Thank you again for everybody who voted and participated and submitted your questions in the 100th episode award show. And also apologies for taking last week off. I know we got at least one message from Seth in the Facebook group saying that, he missed us and we missed you too. But
amen, man. Amen.
Last weekend was just Doc got called into work at the last minute. It was a whole thing. And then I've been really, really struggling lately, mentally and just emotionally with a lot of things. And you can go to our YouTube channel where you can watch my daily NAPOD POMO videos for National Podcasting Post Month or National Podcast Posting Month, something along those lines, for just a stream of consciousness, free expression, free flowing thought process where I sort of talk about all of the brain weasels, so to speak, that I have been dealing with as of late. I decided to put them on YouTube because I didn't want to clog up your RSS feed with short, choppy podcasts. Plus, it's just a lot easier for me to just turn on my webcam, press record, and go. So that's kind of what's been going on. But we have fantastic news. And it's something we have known for a couple of weeks, but we had to keep quiet until it was officially released. But we have been featured in Podcast Magazine in the Under the Radar section on for shows that are for indie podcasts that they feel kind of need some more love and haven't gotten, I suppose, the download numbers that they feel that should be received or what have you. So thank you to Susan, the health and fitness director. She found us and contacted us about a month ago or so, maybe about 6 weeks, and said, we're going to feature your show in an upcoming episode and just stay tuned on it. So we've been waiting with bated breath. So it is now official. And maybe we could hit the top 50 in the Podcast Magazine Hot 50 monthly voting. So check out the Podcast Magazine website and, maybe show us some love. Vote for us, please, if you so choose.
It would help out immensely.
It would indeed, as would our TeePublic store is going to be on sale a couple of times this month for short spans. So I'll post this on social media during the sales. But if you're interested to get up to 35% off, if you want to get somebody a nice Capes on the Couch shirt or a hoodie or some cool swag for the holidays, which are coming up, the store will be up to 35% off on pretty much everything. November 4th through the 6th, 11th through the 13th, 17th through the 20th, 26th and 27th, and 29th and 30th. Those dates will all be in the show notes, and I'll be posting on social media that the store will be on sale in the appropriate dates. So go check it out, get some cool stuff. And while you're there, you can support independent artists, much like I am supporting an independent artist, Emily, the amazingly talented artist who did our Why Because Comics logo, drew this amazing artwork of, it's a very political statement on my shirt that I'm wearing. But as this episode will actually be released the day after the election in the United States, we'll see what happens. I'm certainly not going to attempt to prognosticate. And instead, let's just pivot right to the episode. Two-Face, Harvey Dent, very famous Batman villain, created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane in Detective Comics number 66, August 1942. In his first few appearances, he's Harvey Kent, and he was later renamed to avoid confusion with Superman, just based on the names, although I don't think anybody's really going to confuse Two-Face with Superman based on their characterizations. So, for those of you who don't know, Harvey Dent is an attorney who gets acid thrown in his face during cross-examination at a trial, and he chooses to embrace the duality of his appearance, and he uses a coin flip to determine his actions. Very early on, he was cured, quote unquote, due to plastic surgery, because as we all know, obviously changing what you look like automatically erases and addresses any of your underlying sociological issues, because that's how that works. Hashtag because comics. So he really wasn't referenced all that much early on. Then he was brought back by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. And then Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then the post-crisis DC history reinvented his past, and it was revealed that he grew up with an abusive father who would flip a coin to determine whether or not to beat him. And then he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, but through an amazing work ethic, he managed to work through them to become the district attorney in Gotham, and he worked as an ally of Batman and Commissioner Gordon until he was attacked with acid by Sal Maroni at trial. In the No Man's Land storyline, Two-Face plays a major role, and he controls a portion of Gotham. But during the trial, basically it's a kangaroo court of Commissioner Gordon, he calls upon Commissioner Gordon calls upon Harvey Dent to serve as his defense attorney, forcing Dent to cross-examine Two-Face. And Harvey Dent, being of much more keen legal acumen than Two-Face, manages to acquit Commissioner Gordon by revealing that Two-Face actually blackmailed Gordon. So he was then healed by Dr. Thomas Elliot, a.k.a. Hush, who attempted to blackmail Dent to help him against Batman, but Dent is cured of his bipolar disorder. Cue Doc's grumbling again, until murders pop up with Two-Face's MO that sort of implicate Dent, causing people to lose their faith that he has been cured. So the Two-Face persona resurfaces, and he decides to re-scar himself. Then in the New 52, his origin is that of a defense attorney whose clients tried to kill him. Whose clients tried to kill Commissioner Gordon. He then decides to become the district attorney and prosecute them. And at this point, I'm going to... And because that's not how the law works.
Yep.
And then one of the twins disfigures him with acid. He later battles Batman and reveals he knows his identity before attempting suicide. So in Rebirth, the suicide attempt effectively destroyed the Dent persona, but he convinced Batman that Harvey was still in there if only Batman would help him with the cure. Batman sedated Harvey Dent and forced the dual identities to remain. So, on the issues, bipolar disorder, that's not how it works.
Okay.
And I'll leave it to Doc.
I appreciate the fact that, although I'll admit I didn't pick all these issues myself, this is going to be kind of a back to basics situation. So, something that I don't always do, depending on how things are going to go. And since we now have video, and I'm not, giving anything specific that I can't say online, I'm going to go straight to the DSM because that's the best thing we can do. The whole point of bipolar disorder is not what people usually think. When someone says, oh, well, I feel happy one moment and then an hour later I feel sad, or I get really upset at things, and people say that I'm very volatile and all that. That's not what any of that means. Not that it's not important and not that it's not actionable, but bipolar disorder specifically means that you have a set period of time, usually a matter of weeks, if not months, where you are experiencing a major constellation of symptoms. The main category is something that most people can relate to fairly simply, which is depression. So that can affect your sleep, your appetite, your interest in things. You can be depressed to the point of feeling suicidal. You could even have psychotic symptoms. But the point is all of that is happening, and it's more often than not for several days, more often than not And it doesn't just get turned on and off like a light switch. It can be predetermined by certain factors that have happened in your life, or it may show up on its own. It may be something that runs in the family. It may not be. These things are not set in stone. But the reason we have something called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, in this case, version 5, is because we want to make sure as professionals, we are all talking about a similar symptom set. That doesn't make this a panacea. So the labels that we use are not perfect, but they are close enough that when I say bipolar disorder to another healthcare professional, they kind of sort of know what range I'm in and what I'm expecting. I already talked about the depressed side, but then there's the manic side, which is quote unquote, some people say the happy side. That's not accurate either. Mania can involve irritability. Mania can involve a lot of anger. It may involve euphoria, but it doesn't have to. People often have little sleep because they have little need for sleep. They may be incredibly productive. They may actually have an inflated sense of self-worth. All of those things can happen. And the best part is, you don't know, for the most part with many of these people, they don't even know that it's causing a problem to others or to themselves because they're only looking at the benefits, the upside. They're not noticing that their relationships may be impacted severely. They may not notice that they're doing more reckless behavior. They may be doing things related to sex or violence that they wouldn't have done otherwise. And other people have to point it out for them. And once again, it's something that lasts for several days. It's not something that is just by the moment or by the hour. So when they mention this in the comics like that so flippantly, it's not exactly a great thing to do. And the fact that it's Two-Face that we're talking about, I certainly can appreciate that idea. But in this case, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that it's one half of the person at one period of time for weeks or months, or then the other one comes out? No, that's not what they meant. So it was just a matter of, unfortunately, what I think is a great medium misusing a term, and it didn't have to happen that way. So there's a little brief background on what bipolar is, and it's not comprehensive in any way. It's just for the sake of our listeners getting their feet wet with it. Because if someone's saying that or using that term and they're talking about moment-to-moment changes, then they're not talking bipolar disorder.
I was going to say, if you want a really excellent discussion on bipolar disorder, you can go back and listen to our episode on Nadia Van Dyne.
Amen.
When we had the interview with Jeremy Whitley, because that is a very condensed but realistic portrayal of the authentic and much more realistic transition between the manic and the depressive stages. And that was depicted in the Unstoppable Wasp series, volumes 1 and 2. I think it was especially volume 1 in particular, but we really get to see Nadia go through the throes of mania, and it's not portrayed as a great thing, and it is shown to have a negative impact on her relationships with her friends and the rest of Girl. And we see that's what ultimately leads to her needing to get help. You know, you talk about mania can possibly be euphoric. I myself had what I can best describe as a manic state probably about 2 to 3 months ago. For about 3 hours, there was just something in my brain chemistry that just lined up exactly. I was never so productive as I was in those 3 hours. I was moving like my ass was on fire. And then I crashed. I needed a nap for about an hour and change. And I woke up and I returned to baseline. But I was like, wow, I got so much done. The key to enjoying, and I'm putting that in air quotes, enjoying a manic phase is to, if you're going to have the productivity, have it be aimed at something that you need the productivity, like that you should be productive on. Mine was work. I was answering emails. I was never typing that fast, I think, in my life. That's a good effective, productive use of a manic phase, as opposed to I'm going to be manic and reorganize all the files in my computer. I mean, it may need to be done, but I don't know that that's necessarily the best use of your time. Really, I'm just sort of speaking from my own experience. And I know Doc is giving me the side eye right now, and he's like, you're really not trying to glorify mania, are you?
I noticed I'm going to be doing a lot of grumbling throughout this episode, so don't mind me. I'm actually not grouchy right now. I'm in a very good mood overall. It's just that
let's try and ruin that then by moving on to point number 2, which is schizophrenia. That's not how it works.
Okay, so most people, unfortunately, may have a baseline idea of what schizophrenia is, where they think of just purely a person hallucinating, losing touch with reality. So seeing things or hearing things or smelling things that no one else can experience. And therefore, it means that they have a significant illness. Well, that can be a part of it. Schizophrenia definitely includes the psychotic component, but there's also a much more baseline cognitive component to it. It can involve what for some people looks similar to depression, but without the added emotional content. So a person may be disinterested or not be able to have the same connections with people. They may be disorganized cognitively. Some people, you wonder if they have an early dementia. It could be that severe. There could be a huge level of paranoia. Not just whether or not people are out to get you, but you may develop an entire structural system as to how to describe what's happening. And it may or may not be based on previous events or parts of reality in and of themselves. So in other words, just because someone's paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. But conversely, just because you've had a negative experience in life doesn't mean that it's being carried forward for every intimate contact that you've ever had. And yet I have to hear these things on a daily basis because I work in a psychiatric hospital. There's also the prodrome, where people may not demonstrate basic interest in self-care, hygiene, all those things that we kind of sort of take for granted. And when you don't notice them, you wonder, hey, what's up with that person? So there's a wide range that goes above and beyond what's the typical media portrayal with schizophrenia. But because of the root of it, when you say schiz, of anything, schism, it means a split. So people sometimes say, oh, that must be split personality. Nope. Oh, well, is that just another form of bipolar? Nope. So if you want more of a discussion of psychosis in general, not just schizophrenia, and now I'm sure I'm confusing people, say like, oh, Doc, I thought that was all the exact same thing. No, it's not. You can look at our Deadpool episode where I really dive into that area, as well as with the Joker. I do a bit there as well. So we're really going far back for those, but they're kind of classic. And like I said, this is, I guess, even if it wasn't intended to be kind of a back to basics episode, which is good if you're just jumping in. It's a good refresher if you've heard some of this before. But the point is, I don't know where the hell this comes in with Harvey Dent. Not a clue. With Two-Face, like what on earth? No, this has nothing to do with this character. That's the stupidest thing I've heard. When people start throwing around schizophrenia in media in general, it really gets me angry, because you're just starting to use a word that's going to lose its meaning, lose its context, and now it becomes almost inflammatory. Like you're saying, when you say someone's schizophrenic, you got to take that seriously. That you're saying you have a severe mental illness that may include breaks with reality and a lack of basic functioning that most people don't like to hear. And we're very careful when we talk to patients about this stuff, because we recognize some patients may view this as an insult, even though it's just clinical observations trying to categorize a constellation of symptoms. So when someone wants to put this out there like that, this isn't innocuous. This can be really harmful. So that's why, as Anthony said, I'm not going to let it ruin my mood, but it's something that definitely influences it to make me more angry about it.
Well, take a deep breath. Inhala, exhala. Yeah, I think we've talked about the legitimate disorders and portrayals of legitimate disorders before on the show. And it's funny, in some sense, I think this episode, more than most, is a sort of a callback to what you and I maybe initially envisioned the show as being back when we first discussed it. The potential to discuss characters who are claimed to have particular disorders, but in actuality don't portray anything remotely close to what the real versions of those disorders would look like, and then do a compare and contrast and talk about what a Harvey Dent with real bipolar disorder would look like, or what a Harvey Dent with real schizophrenia would look like versus the versions that we see in the comics. So that was something that I know when you and I were many, many eons ago discussing what the show would eventually become, that was one of the things that we talked about. So it's funny that now on episode 101, we're sort of finally getting around to that initial idea.
Well,
better late than never, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because when we get to the treatment side, I'm going to focus on something very specific that has nothing to do with these diagnoses, but can be beneficial for many people, which once again ties back to maybe one of the original goals of this show. So we'll see how that goes. But I know there's another issue that we want to get into.
There is another issue, and that's, I want to discuss number 3, the abusive childhood. And this is actually fairly accurate, or at least much more accurate than the bipolar and the schizophrenia. We see Harvey Dent coming from an abusive background, and the father's use of the coin flip to determine whether or not to beat Harvey, I think, is certainly over the top, but they needed to find a way to tie in the coin. But everything else and the impact that it has on Harvey and his psyche, again, hews much more closely to real coping with childhood abuse than at least the first two.
Yeah. And this is where, if you get rid of the diagnosis of schizophrenia, but use the term schism, that's fair, because one of the most common responses to trauma can be dissociation. The idea that you take the original stimulus and whatever trope or term you want to use for it, you bury it, you suppress it, you hide it, you just lock it away. And in that sense, that can be incredibly realistic. If it's something, though, that still leads to the emotional responses to how you deal with everyday life, then you absolutely can see huge emotional swings and responses, regardless of what the timeline is. And that volatility of the combination of sadness, anxiety, rage, anger, all of it. That's all fair, and it's unfortunate. Or you can be on the low volatility side of the spectrum. We feel numb, empty, isolated, distant. That's also just as valid. And notice, I'm not using the construct of bipolar, because that's not the constellation of symptoms that you automatically have to associate with bipolar if it's the way the person is responding to any given one unique situation, as opposed to a fully developed pattern that can be tracked over time, which is one of the major parts of making these diagnoses. So the idea that much of our emotional health, our mental health, has to do with previous traumatic experiences is not a stretch at all. And part of that concern is it can happen at any age. The earlier and the more frequent, the more it's going to have an impact. You may not even remember the original trauma, depending on how young you were, but that doesn't mean it didn't last. And heaven forbid, if it's something recent for you, then as an adult, you already have a schema. You already have a system of how you're supposed to process information. And this could completely shatter it, because you're either going to try and fit it into what you already know and go about your business, and you're not going to feel proper about it, or you're going to say, well, my entire schema is destroyed and I have to start from scratch, which can definitely cause its own problems. So there is no one right way to handle these things. And there's a million wrong ways that it can affect you. So it's unfortunate someone like Two-Face went through that. And then not to mention, I know you mentioned abusive childhood, but I'll take it further and say, in addition to having acid thrown in your face, and being attacked while you're doing your job, that's something that, not to get into details, that's something that's happened to more than one person. It's actually happened to me just once, hopefully never again. But the point is, I'm grateful that I don't carry any scars from that I can tell. I jump in with patients all the time. I do not hesitate. It doesn't provoke a fear response or a startle response. I'm talking about things more like post-traumatic stress. If there's anything that was a missed opportunity with a character like Two-Face, if you're going to go the history of traumatic childhood and the drama with the coin flip and all that, the idea that he didn't have an acute stress reaction and then PTSD on top of it, I think that was the missed cause. So then you just throw out bipolar schizophrenia. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to harp on the writers. I know I'm sure they're doing an amazing job with everything else about it. And I love Batman. I love the characters. I love all of it. I don't want to make it sound like I'm denigrating the entire situation, but I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. Like it could have been done so much better and more realistic if it had gone with that route and looked at the actual stress of all of it and recognizing the breadth of what's in that area, as opposed to just saying, well, either you're bipolar or you're schizophrenic. And if you're not one of those, then it doesn't matter.
Well said. And thank you for, sort of clarifying that. Also, I'm terribly sorry that you had acid thrown at you. That's
Thanks.
That's horrible.
Thanks. Oh, thank you. Yeah, as if I want to give the details as to what happened. So, but you know what? You guys have been listening
you
for
just sort of like dropped that in there and we're like,
I know.
I'm just going to.
Well, no, my point, and you know what? That's fair. That's fair. I don't want to leave people hanging. I'm not trying to give glimpses here and there without being transparent. So basically what happened is I was seeing a patient in the emergency room, saw a different patient later on, and I got blindsided, sucker punched a couple of times. One time broke my rib. That's it. That's what happened. So there you go. Wasn't acid.
Oh, I knew about the attack. I thought you were saying something about acid.
No, just the fact that Harvey had acid thrown on him while he was working. That's my point. That's all I was getting at, man. Had nothing to do with acid for me.
Oh.
I was just saying I got attacked at work.
Oh, well, that I knew. Not to like downplay whatever. No, I knew that. No, I thought the acid was like a different thing. I was like, holy shit. When did that happen?
No. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I apologize. I did not mean to mislead you that way. Wow. I would have definitely told you something like that. Oh, man.
Well, that's when you were like, oh, and I don't have any scars. Not that I know of. I was like,
I meant emotional scars, you Philistine.
All right. Fair enough. So with all of that being said, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll get into treatment. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Ood Gallifrey.
I'm Sage Murray.
And I'm Leon Filger.
And we are the Occulte Veritatis podcast. We talk about anything that intrigues, horrifies, or interests us, including true crime,
Serial killers,
military conspiracies,
and other mysteries and horrors of reality. So get cozy with your favorite alcoholic beverage.
Smoke a joint or two.
Only if it's legally purchased medicinal marijuana, of course. And tune in. We would love to have you.
You would.
You can find all of our links, all of the ways you can subscribe, and the rest of our bullshit at www.ovpod.ca. We hope you listen in soon.
Hey podcast fans, I'm Rachel, host of We're All Mad Here, a new podcast about the history of mental health. Do you love history? Do you love creepy stories of abandoned hospitals? How about questionable medical procedures? We're covering it all. Not only will we sneak around in old asylums, we'll talk about the patients that stayed there and what their lives were like. We're covering disorders, cures, and living life with mental illness. So come join us on We're All Mad Here at allmadpod.com, because the history of mental illness is insane.
Hi, I'm Meredith Finch, and you're listening to Capes on the Couch.
And we're back in universe treatment for Harvey Dent. So I'm assuming you're not going to treat him for the bipolar and the schizophrenia that he doesn't actually have.
Oh my God, no.
So
No.
What would you treat him for?
I would treat him for a lot of recidivist activity that clearly stems from the huge amount of trauma that he's witnessed in his life and experienced directly. So from that standpoint, I love part of what Commissioner Gordon did, although it wasn't therapy. And by the way, thank you so much for sparing me from having to talk about dissociative identity disorder, because I'm pretty sure I would have broken the microphone. But in universe, he actually commands a lot of respect on both sides, the villainous side and the former, hero of Gotham, like not a superhero, but he had a lot of clout. And I think I would do the ultimate in contrast, because it's clear that's what he would appreciate. It's a good old-fashioned pros and cons list. Tell me about the things in your life that you recall that were your most positive points. And tell me the things that, if I want to couch it, I'd say that didn't go as well as you had hoped. Or really, with everything you experienced, the things that really were horrible and you feel destroyed you and ruined you for the rest of your life. And the idea is not to create a balanced list, because sometimes people think when you're dealing with emotional volatility, you're trying to create balance. There's no such thing. It's always going to be a seesaw or teeter-totter, depending on what you know it as. So the point is, you want to know at each point, let's say on a monthly basis, how many things you're lining up in each column. And my job is to make sure that someone like Harvey, or Two-Face, however he's identifying himself, is moving one thing from the negative column to the positive column. So if it's, I've lost 3 nights of sleep because I keep thinking about the acid in my face. Okay, well, that's 3 nights out of the past month. What was different about the other 27? And I want them to go into detail about it. And I would actually just make sure that he has that posted day after day after day. And as hopefully the therapy goes on, he would notice that it's starting to shift that balance ever so consistently slightly in the favor of things that are going to be better rather than worse. And I would want it to be posted with that classic split picture of him, because if we're going to do comics and we're going to do drama, then I would say go for it. The one thing that I'm fearful of, though, is that, and it actually has been done very well in the comics, is that he epitomizes everything good with the quote unquote normal looking side of him, and everything that is not so good with the scarred side of him. And I would start doing some very trippy things. I would say, okay, what I want you to do, keep the list the same, switch the pictures, list the good stuff with the scarred side, list some of the not so good things with the quote unquote unscarred side. See if that makes a difference. And giving him that direct visual feedback, in addition to all of the things that we're actually talking about, might actually do some good. That's my thought. And I know some people are saying, like, well, Doc, you always have like these really extravagant things to do in universe and all of that. But I think in this case, especially in the Batman universe, sometimes it's best to recognize that, as Batman himself said in the cartoon, I had a bad day too once. These are people that just sometimes need that nudge one way or another, and work with them at that level rather than trying to make it extra dramatic.
Okay. I definitely wouldn't have seen it going, I suppose, as calmly as you're making it out to be. but I also understand where you're coming from with that. So then out of universe, let's go with scarred or physically disfigured, abusive childhood. Maybe let's say realistically schizophrenic and bipolar to, I guess, add a layer of difficulty maybe.
All right. So because you're adding difficulty, then I actually have to make things simpler. And some people may be wondering, well, Doc, you just gave a very simplistic way of dealing with Two-Face in universe. Now you have someone who may qualify with these other diagnoses that you said were misused before. But let's say someone qualifies. Honestly, first of all, let me clarify. If someone were to, let's say, qualify where they have an on and off period when it comes to bipolar episodes, be it mania, depression, statistically much more likely to have more depressive episodes than manic episodes. They may have only one manic episode in their lifetime to qualify. But in addition to that, they have periods where they exhibit psychotic symptoms, irrespective of whether or not they are having any of the mood symptoms affiliated with bipolar disorder. That's its own special term. That's called schizoaffective disorder, which, once again, kind of muddies the waters, right? But let's say we're going with all of that. And in the midst of treating this realistic person, you find out that there is a significant childhood trauma, which really, for anyone that's been in this field, shouldn't be too surprising. Yes, I know I'm going to be dealing with medication management for this. I'm probably going to be dealing with medications that moderate dopamine, medications that monitor and moderate serotonin and norepinephrine, more than likely. But beyond that, once we have those things squared away, I want to work on this person's decision making, because that's really the heart of Two-Face's character that we didn't discuss. He can't make decisions. And if you are in severe emotional distress and you have difficulty processing reality, you're going to have trouble making decisions. Or if you're making decisions, you don't have a process. You don't have a rubric as to how you're making them. They may be impulsive and they may lead to even worse consequences. So I want to just address that a little bit, because I think we all of us could benefit from this. The idea of a decision is predicting the future. We don't consider it that, but that's exactly what it is. We are saying that something that we are going to do now is going to have a determination, maybe minutes, hours, years from now, that's going to have an influence. If that's the case, then, Anthony, I need you to give me your time machine and your crystal ball, and I need you to tell me right now how everything turns out. Because if I have that information, I'll be able to make the right decision. So if you could just do that for me now, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, so you don't have that. Well, as usual, you're useless to me. So if that's the case, then I have to use the current information at hand as well as historical information to make decisions. And more importantly, I have to recognize that that decision that I make has already been influenced by previous decisions that have been made that may or may not have been in my power. So real briefly, you have to know how many options there are, and you have to know the magnitude. So if, let's just go with something that many of our fans probably have struggled with. And if you haven't with this particular one, you can think of one for yourself. Which college to go to? Is that an important decision? Yes. So that means you probably should give it more weight and actually look at what amount of time you should spend before making a final decision. What am I going to have for dinner is not a major decision. And I know there are some people that may say things like, well, wait, what if I get food poisoning? What if I choose something that's going to make me sick? I'm like, okay, let's go with that. If you have food poisoning and I time travel, and let's say it's a month from now, barring it was the worst food poisoning in mankind and you're still alive, did that decision actually impact anything regarding your mood now? The answer is probably going to be no. maybe 5 minutes from the decision, it definitely influenced you, but not further than that. The decision you made for college or your major or your career or things like that, that can have lasting impact. So you need to take your time with that. And you need to do as much research as you can before making a final decision. Just that basic rubric, as opposed to saying YOLO, can have a real, I'm saying this because there's so much in the zeitgeist right now about treat yourself and the idea that instant gratification is going to lead to overall happiness. And I'm not saying that you can't make fun decisions. I'm saying leave the fun decisions for the small stuff and take your time with the big things and develop a system where you're going to at least give the proper weight to the decisions that are necessary. This is difficult for someone who is going through active emotional trauma or is having difficulty processing reality. And if that's the case, then they're going to have to, in theory, rely on other people to at least filter some of that information for them, if they even trust people to filter it for them. So, no, you don't have to have schizophrenia. You don't have to have bipolar disorder. You don't need to be going through those things. And heaven forbid, if you've gone through childhood trauma, I'm sorry. It's a horrible thing, and I wish you the best. At the same time, where you were doesn't have to be where you stay. And so if you don't have to just rely on random coin flips for the big decisions in life, leave the coin flips for the small stuff. Save yourself some time and effort, and don't give yourself decision fatigue. What you're wearing to work that day is nowhere near as important as how am I going to enrich my child's life with what activities they decide to do for the next 5 months when COVID is hopefully under more control. Just as random examples, not that I'm thinking about these things or, dealing with that in my own life.
No, not at all. I like that. But I think the advice is fantastic, but I hope that our listeners take it to heart, but I am concerned that with, like you talk about the zeitgeist with treat yourself and everything, that it becomes so pervasive that people just fall prey to the mindset of, I'm just going to do this because it's easier. And I know this is a major decision, and, that becomes the decision fatigue. And then they obsess over the small stuff because they feel that they need to focus on, should I get the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, like that sort of thing.
Right.
Versus trying to figure out who to vote for kind of thing.
Yeah. And in terms of
recording before the election and releasing afterwards.
Yeah. Well, in terms of that, and I know I'm going to butcher this, and I apologize. And hopefully Anthony gets this reference. Are you aware of the anecdote, the college professor that talks about the empty jar, and
yes.
Okay. So it starts
with
the
stones and the marbles and the sand.
Exactly.
And
correct. I feel like that's the best summation. Well, way better than what I just did in terms of how to prioritize things in life, how to process those decisions so that you don't spend time on the small stuff, don't sweat the small stuff. Thank you, Kevin James. And you really take the time on the big ones, not to the point of paralysis, but just, recognizing that sometimes 60% of the information is all you're going to get. And that's a little better than a coin flip, and you're going to have to go with it because it's the best choice you can make. So I know that's a wide range, but that's the truth of life. Life is so much uncertainty. And Two-Face creates these it's a falsehood with the amount of certainty that he acts. And it's a comfort for him, but it's to his detriment. So just to tie it back directly to the character.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think we've beaten around the bush enough to some extent. So let's see what happens when we get Two-Face on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, Harvey. I'm Doc
Two-Face. I'm Two-Face.
All right. Hello, Two-Face. I'm Dr. Issues. Now, your circumstance is a bit unusual because I'm not here for a usual session. You've been in Arkham so many times that you're due for mental health court.
What? Again? All right, hold on a sec. I have something for you.
If it's your coin, I don't need it.
Nope, it's a card. Harvey's card.
Okay. It has his phone number, but I don't need this either.
Just call it, will you, Doc? Oh, man, every time they gotta question me.
Hello?
You have reached the Harvey Dent legal advocacy line. If you are Two-Face, say 1. If you are anyone else, say 2.
2. This is so ridiculous.
If you are one of the associates of Two-Face, say 1. If you are legal authority, mental health provider, or Batman, say
2. This is worse than insurance.
2. If this is a criminal matter involving Two-Face, say 1. If this is a mental health court preparation, say 2.
2.
If Two-Face is suicidal, say 1. If he is not, say 2.
Are you suicidal?
No.
2.
If Two-Face is homicidal, hang up and dial 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Otherwise, use common sense, ask him, and say 2.
Are you having any thoughts of hurting anyone else?
Not yet.
I'll take that as a no and say 2.
Please review Two-Face's medical record if you have not done so. If he has been complying with treatment, say 1. If he is not, or has had any other changes in treatment, say
1. Oh, thank God. Got to say something
2.
different.
Thank you. Your answers have been recorded and an official statement has been emailed to the Gotham City Attorney General's office, which in turn will lead to an automatic reply from the appointed judge overseeing mental health case reviews for the current date. Although the official report is sent to Arkham Asylum proper, you, as the mental health provider, other attorney, or Batman, are able to obtain a copy by texting a working email address and your professional title to 23223.
What? What? This is absurd. This is a sham. And the text number. Oh, bravo, genius.
What can I say? Harvey's really good. The best defense money can buy.
You didn't even buy it. Dear Dr. Issues, thank you for your efforts in providing appropriate care for Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, and providing an expedited deposition using the automated Harvey Dent legal advocacy line. This was put in place due to the repeated hearings for this particular citizen taking excessive amounts of time within our court system. Therefore, rather than having a traditional hearing, this system is classified as binding arbitration and can't be appealed. Based on the responses to the questions at hand, you did not present clear and convincing evidence that your client requires the highest level of restriction. Therefore, the court finds that you must lower your level of care necessary for your patient in accordance with Gotham City law. For your protection, you are not considered liable for any actions taken by your patient within the next 30 days. A summary of your treatment plan recommendations must be submitted to the court within the next 2 business days. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. It's on official letterhead and everything.
Go on, call them. They don't lie. I already spent years putting this together. Cost quite a pretty penny. Actually, any thug can use it, but most screwed up because they're
not him. I get it. Well, I don't want to waste time, and I do want you to do as well as you can, but there's a wide range of possibilities for your treatment. Like right now, you're in solitary with directly observed medication treatment, a one-on-one guard, daily individual talk therapy, and medication management by a prescriber every day. Each one of those, in theory, can be changed.
My head hurts.
I figured you'd say that. So, let's simplify it. You get to be with the regular population, group therapies, standard medication management without a one-on-one guard.
Oh, I think Harvey would like that. He could give basic law lessons to inmates, have a bit of breathing room, try to get some time off for good behavior.
Sounds good. So I'll,
Wait. Something's wrong with this. You're not screaming. You're not mad. Everybody hates this stuff. Why don't you? Don't you think I should rot like all the others?
Well, you've done some horrible things, but that's no reason to give up on you. Look, honest answer, I just think I got railroaded, and I hate that. But like I said, I don't want to waste your time, and the sooner you can take control, the better off you'll be.
Maybe I don't deserve that. Harvey does, but not me. Just, I don't know. Tell him I threatened to mess you up. They'll keep my punishment the same.
Whoa, that's not fair either. You're talking out of despair. I know you've done that before. I got it. You'll appreciate this. We'll do it your way. We're going to do a coin flip.
All right, now you're talking. Let me just,
Nope. I have a coin. All right, not yours. So, heads, we go with my plan. Tails, we go with yours. Deal?
let me see the coin first. All right, deal.
All right, here goes.
Well? But what are you doing? Show it.
Well, what do you want it to show?
I was hoping it would show that I'm doing what I'm supposed to and some smarmy doctor wasn't trying to toy with my emotions so Harvey could get a piece of his life he deserves back, you son of a...
Hold it. You know, it shows exactly what you wanted it to say. So, option one it is.
What? You can't just put it back without showing me?
Why not? You get to act on what you want. You got the act of using random chance as a starting point. You use the imperfect information on hand in combination with emotional input to create a scenario that has a decent probability of leading to a positive outcome. Well done, Two-Face. Harvey would be proud.
Now that's what I call manipulating the system. So, did you plan the whole coin thing?
Well, I may have, but I knew it might not have to come to that, or he could have just really told me to F off. But I also didn't expect someone to have an automated legal response system, which, by the way, if our government enacts that, I'm trademarking that and making so much money.
Yeah, the lawyer in me thinks that's not going to fly.
Of course
just putting that out there. I don't think that's going to work. Due process and all.
Yeah, and added disclaimer, I'm well aware of what the actual laws are for the state of New Jersey when it comes to mental health court. And no, I am not mocking it. I just thought it was a great idea for the skit. So please, I don't need the hate mail for that.
I don't think you're going to get any hate mail. I don't think we ever get hate mail anyway. Listen, if we didn't get hate mail for some of the stuff we've said already, I don't think you making up a fake mental health court for the Two-Face skit is going to really trigger anybody.
Alrighty.
Because we've had some much worse and hotter takes and potential misinformation on this show than that.
Fair enough.
So, recommended reading is going to be The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. It's a fantastic little mini-series. I think it's 13 issues. It's a Batman story, but it's also very heavily a Two-Face story and gives you a little more insight into very early Harvey Dent, pre-Two-Face, pre-scarring, sort of give you a handle on what he does and who he become, or what leads to him becoming the scarred Two-Face that we all know and love? Question mark. So, next episodes are Tim Drake, Luke Cage, and Clones. And then also somewhere in there, we are going to be recording with the Mental Health Avengers. So, not exactly sure where that one is going to slot in, but we will be discussing mental health and the prison system. So it's going to be a very, very heavy topic, and we will be recording that one after the election. So I'll be very curious to see what role the effect of the presidential election has on the discussion and on the the folks that we're going to have in on that discussion. So quick reminder again, the TeePublic store is going to be on sale basically starting today. So if you're listening to this on the date it is released, the store is on sale from today through Friday. And then basically the next couple of Wednesday through Fridays. And you can join our Patreon site, patreon.com/capes on the couch, and subscribe and get some cool additional content. And as always, you can find all of our episodes on our website at capesonthecouch.live. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Capes on the Couch. So please leave us a rating and review if you listen to us on a platform that allows you to do so, Podchaser or Apple Podcasts in particular. And if you send us an email at capesonthecouch@gmail.com with a screen cap of the rating along with your address, we will send you a sticker as a fun way of saying thank you for spreading the good word. So, Doc, anything you want to add?
Sometimes we put so much armor after experiencing trauma that people may consider us to be two-faced. Just make sure that you don't let insults put a dent in it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's one of your more well-crafted puns. For Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.